Hey guys, my name is Tim and I'm the youth pastor over at Bethany Church's Greenland campus. Thanks for checking out this video as we start a new church-wide series called The Hole in Our Gospel. Now over the next handful of weeks, I'm going to be teaching you guys via video, and we're going to be talking about this topic of the gospel. What is it? Are we living it out? And if we're not, what would it mean to actually live out the gospel and to really follow God's call for us to be the hands and feet of Jesus? Let's check out this week's message. Have you ever felt like something was missing, like you were doing an activity in life or something, and then all of a sudden you went like, wait, not all the pieces are here. Something's not right, something's not here that needs to be here. You know, I was thinking about that in relation to my own life and my wedding, actually. Jenny and I got married in Wolfboro, New Hampshire, up by Lake Winnipesaukee, but I had to rent the car that we were going to drive from the wedding down to Boston, and it was down in Boston where I was going to get the car at the airport. So I hopped on the train, and I took the train from Durham, New Hampshire down to Boston. Then I hopped on the T and took one T, and then hopped on another T and took another T, and finally got to the airport. And I walked up to the guy at the counter, and I said, hey, I'm here to rent my car. My name is Tim Carpenter. And he looked up the info and said, we don't have your registration. We don't have any information. We don't have any reservation. And I was kind of like, well, I did it online, and you should have it. And the guy was like, no, we don't. So, you know, I started to get frustrated, but I thought, I don't have time to mess with this. So I'm just going to leave. I'm going to go to another agent, another retailer for renting cars and see if I can get a car there. So I leave the Hertz agency and I walk out, and it's July 4th weekend. There's so many cars there and all parked like bumper to bumper. So there I am trying to get from this agency to the other agency, and all the cars are like this, but I can't get over them. So I'm walking back and forth in the parking lot like it's me going through a maze. I feel like a mouse in one of those like labs. Finally, I get to another rental place, and they don't have any cars to rent. So then finally I go to a third place, and finally I get a hold of a Trailblazer. Now, unfortunately, Trailblazers are Jenny's least favorite vehicle. So I show up, and I'm like, hey, we're getting married. And she's like, hey, look at that car. What happened to our Ford Mustang you're supposed to rent? Well, they didn't have it. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Sometimes you have an experience in life where something's just missing. Like these guys didn't have the car. They didn't have the reservation I made. They didn't have my name or my information. That's just how it is sometimes. Well, when you think about Christianity, that happens sometimes too. There's a lot of people in the Christian world in America today who are challenging people to think about what the gospel really is and if we have all the pieces of what it's supposed to look like. Now, the word gospel is something that in Christian terms we talk about a lot. You hear that term a lot in church. Gospel literally means good news. And the good news in the Christian perspective is, well, Jesus came to earth, lived the life I should have lived. He died the death I should have died. And by him dying on the cross and then being resurrected, I have this opportunity to kind of heal my relationship with God and to eventually, when I die, go and spend eternity in perfection with God. I mean, that's the gospel. That certainly is good news, because right now the reality is without God, our relationship is broken. And so when Jesus came, he offered us an opportunity to kind of heal that relationship and to be made right with God, be made right with one another, and then eventually we go to heaven when we die. But the word gospel, there's so much more to it, because here's the deal. If you look up the original meaning of the word gospel, yes, it does mean good news, but here's the cool thing. Back in the times of Jesus, when an emperor like Caesar, right, he's the emperor and he has a child. And so basically they sent out messengers to all the countryside to say, hey, a new child's been born. Once when this Caesar dies, this new child will become the new ruler, the new emperor. And they believed that when Caesar died, he would go to heaven and become maybe one of the stars or one of the gods, and this new Caesar would take over and be in charge. So when Jesus shows up and starts talking about this idea of he's going to preach the gospel, he's not just saying it's good news that he's going to live this perfect life, show us how to love one another and love God, and then he's going to go and die on the cross to forgive us of our sins and then be resurrected to show us that one day those who believe in Jesus will go to heaven. He's saying something additional to that. He's saying, hey, this guy Caesar thinks he's the real emperor, the real ruler, but that's not the case. Jesus says, I'm actually the real ruler. I'm the one who's the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and I'm going to come in a very humble way, but one day I'm going to come back and show you that I rule absolutely everything. So the gospel was a decree to say, there's a king in town. And Jesus was saying, I'm the real king. So think about that fact. Jesus is saying, I'm the real king. If he's the real king of the universe, he's the one who should tell us how we're to live our lives and to give us direction on how to do that. So what do those directions actually look like? Well, there's this pastor, his name is John Piper, and he said, one of the main purposes of Christianity is to relieve suffering, especially eternal suffering. And I just thought that's such a great way to explain it because, ultimately, if the idea of heaven and hell are real, we want to make sure that people don't go to hell and that they go to heaven instead. So that's the eternal reality of us as human beings, that we live forever. But the other side of that equation is that we as Christians are called to live out the good news of Jesus. And as we're transformed by it, we should look around in the world and say, that person's hurting or that person's in need. And that should make us want to reach out and care for those people. And here's the reality. If you look at the American church, a lot of people will toss a couple bucks into the collection plate and they'll think, yeah, it's good to help a missionary, or maybe I'll go on a mission trip once in my life. But the idea that Jesus is bringing forth is, I'm the king, I'm the ruler of the universe, and I'm telling you, you need to go and care for the poor. If you look in the Bible, there's a special place in God's heart for those who are downcast, who are going through hard times, who are poor, who are oppressed. That's God's heart, and he's calling us to be a part of that mission.